What if I was to tell you that you have a superpower that can help you make wiser decisions, get you out of harm's way, and enable you to create the success that matters to you? And that if you don't use this superpower, you are severely disadvantaged. Would you like to know what this superpower is? It is your intuition. See, our intuition tends to be the most underestimated and underutilized superpower that we have. The trick is you can't think your way to your intuition. You have to feel your way to your intuition. The most successful people in the world use this superpower. The late Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, and my hero, Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is my role model, not just because of his amazing martial arts skills, but because of the depth of his philosophies and how I can use these wisdoms in my life. In his famous movie, Enter the Dragon, there is this scene where he is teaching his student how to kick. And he says to the student, "We need emotional content." He also said, "Don't think, feel." When I was growing up, a fun fact about me, by the way, I was born in Hong Kong. When I was 7 years old, I moved to Sydney, Australia, where I grew up. And then as a grown-up, I moved to the United States. I tell you this so you know why it is I look like an Asian person and I sound like an Australian. Growing up, I was taught the opposite. My first day of kindergarten, my mum, she drops me off at school and her last words to me were, "Don't cry, okay?" And then she leaves. That afternoon, she comes and picks me up from school, and I swear to you, her first words to me were, "Did you cry?" And I remember feeling really disappointed in myself, and I didn't want to let her down, so I said, "No, I didn't cry." I lied. My dad was an engineer. He was all about mathematics. So I grew up very head-centric. Thinking was good. Feeling was an inconvenience. And I went from thinking to overthinking. Do you know what I mean by overthinking? Are you doing it right now? Overthinking is thinking and then thinking about the thinking and then thinking about the thinking. So you end up chasing your own tail, analysis paralysis. And here's what I've learned. Overthinking gets in the way of your intuition. Fast forward many years, my husband and I want to start a family. And after 3 long years and a devastating miscarriage, we finally have a baby boy. We named him Robbie. So here I am with this precious little child in my hand, a child I almost didn't have. And I have an overwhelming sensation that I need to protect him. God forbid if anyone tried to come and harm him, I realized I don't have any skills to even defend myself, let alone my child. So I decided to learn martial arts. I wanted to take up karate. I wanted to be confident and skillful like Bruce Lee. Just for the record, I know Bruce Lee did Kung Fu, but karate is what resonated with me. But there was a problem. I have a fear of confrontation. See, as a child, I was picked on a lot. And now I have to face this fear. That scene from the movie kept playing in my head. Don't think, feel, don't think, feel. What I was thinking was I was going to walk into my first karate class and there were going to be all these black belts and they were going to beat me up. That's what I was thinking. That wasn't helping. So I tried feeling. I closed my eyes. I tuned inward and asked, what am I feeling? And all of those feelings, the hurt, the sadness, the humiliation, the shame of being picked on at school, couldn't defend myself, came up all at once and out of my eyes. And I just started crying. And it wasn't that pretty cry. It was the ugly cry. You know, the ugly cry. And I just released. And this time I didn't have to lie. And I felt like 1,000 pounds had lifted off my shoulders that I didn't even know was there. And I was carrying it. That was the first time I realized that feeling is healing. And also that gave me enough courage to walk into my very first karate class. And everyone was nice. A few years into my training, my sensei, my teacher, said to me, "All right, Mary, you have some of the basics now. What you need to work on is to be more mean." And I said, "I am mean." He said, "No, you are not. Here's what we are going to do. I'm going to put on these boxing gloves. They're soft. They're not going to hurt you, but I am going to punch at you, and I need you to defend yourself." And the punches just started coming, and I'm trying to block, but the punches kept going through my defense. And I said, "Stop. I'm scared. This is not working. Can you please give me some technique?" But he didn't give me a technique. He said, "All right, Mary, imagine that your little child, Robbie, is standing next to you right now. And I'm going to hurt him. What are you going to do?" I got out of my head. I dropped into my body. I started parrying. And then I had him in a chokehold like this. Apparently, I can be mean. That day at the dojo, I learned for the very first time what Bruce Lee must have meant when he said, "Don't think, feel." I got out of my head, dropped into my body, dropped into the present moment where all the action is. And my intuition jumped in. So my friends, what is intuition? Where does it come from? Why do we have a tendency to dismiss it? And most importantly, how do we use it to benefit our lives? The dictionary definition of intuition is the ability to understand something immediately without the need for conscious reasoning. Dr. Helen Fisher, who is a biological anthropologist and a human behavior researcher, said it's unconscious reasoning. What she says is intuition isn't necessarily as mysterious as we think it is. She said our brain has the ability, as we acquire knowledge, to organize this knowledge into patterns and link these patterns together and store it into long-term memory so that when we see a little detail, our brain has the automatic ability to extrapolate the larger picture that we call intuition. What did Bruce Lee have to say about intuition? He said it's a body feel, it's guidance, and it's the root, the inner wisdom. There is a Bruce Lee podcast run by Shannon Lee, Bruce Lee's daughter. And each episode, she goes through a philosophy of Bruce Lee and translates it into basic language and how we can use it in our lives, whether we're martial artists or not. And she dedicates an entire episode on intuition and how Bruce Lee used intuition in his life. So what does all of this mean? It means that your body already knows what you want, already knows what's good for you. And you just need to pay attention and allow it to guide you. So why is it that we have a tendency to dismiss our intuition? Here's what I believe. There is a cultural stigma that makes us believe, conditioned us to believe that to feel is to be weak. Have you ever heard of these expressions? Don't be too touchy-feely, or don't wear your heart on your sleeve. These expressions imply that to feel is to be weak, and yet feeling is the portal through which we access our intuition. So my question to you is it really? Is feeling to be weak? To feel is to be human. And hey, if Bruce Lee, a badass martial artist who can kick anyone's butt, says to feel, I'm thinking it's okay for us to feel too. In the movie, he said, we need emotional content. He did not say, we need emotional constipation. Do you know anyone in your life who is emotionally constipated? Someone who finds it hard to express their emotion, to release, even to themselves, either because they're so numb to it or because of social conditioning. I believe we need an emotional enema. Release in the privacy of your own home. And please don't make me explain the word enema. You can look it up. I'm sure you get the picture. And so really then, how do we use intuition in our lives? In my experience, there are two ways: instantaneous intuition and intentional intuition. Instantaneous intuition happens immediately. Like when you walk into a room and you sense something's off, maybe danger, you turn around, you get out. Or you meet someone for the very first time and you vibe with them, or you don't vibe with them. That's instantaneous intuition. Intentional intuition is when you consciously, deliberately, intentionally ask your intuition a question for guidance, especially for those big decisions in your life, so that ultimately your whole life is guided by your intuition. For example, in my career, I coach and train people to have the confidence to public speak. And I've been doing this for a long time, over a decade. A few years ago, I was doing this in a large organization. Management changed. Our values didn't match anymore. So I intentionally asked my intuition, what is my next step? Is it to get another job? I tuned in to my body. I felt tight, contracted, heavy. Or is it time to create my own business where I can continue doing what I love? I tuned into my body. I felt uplifted, expansive, exciting, adventure. That's the path I need to take. And then my head jumped in, my overthinking head. What if you fail? What if you don't know what you're doing? What if? I said, I see that you're there, but I trust my intuition that's going to guide me to learn from the right people. I trust my ability to be a lifelong student. I trust that the right people will show up who resonate with what I have to offer. And now that I'm on the other side of that journey, I can tell you I've never been more aligned, never felt so aligned with the core of who I am. And I love my clients. Here's what I suggest. Ask yourself a question. What is my next step? Is this relationship right for me? Is it time for a career shift? What gift does this situation have that I'm not seeing right now? And then drop even deeper. Who am I? What is my purpose? This process of going inward, diving deeper into who you are, into your inner wisdom, is what Bruce Lee called self-inquiry. Which means that the answers to the question that you're most yearning for are not out there. They're not on Google. They're here. And when you intentionally ask your intuition for guidance, you never know what little surprises might show up in your life that your head could never have anticipated. The Bruce Lee podcast on their 1-year anniversary put out a challenge to the listeners. And this was the challenge. For 2 weeks, you were to follow a mind, body, spirit practice that they gave you. And then you were to submit your story about your experiences of the challenge. Well, I entered the challenge. I took on the contest. And then I missed the deadline. My head said, oh well, too bad, so sad. Missed the deadline. But my intuition said, submit it anyway. I followed this pull. I submitted it, and then it occurred to me, hey, wait a minute, I'm in Boston, they're in LA, they're 3 hours behind me, I actually made the deadline. Long story short, because I followed my intuition, guess what? I got to be a guest on the podcast, and I got to meet Shannon Lee, in the gray there, and the co-host of the show, Sharon Lee, in the yellow. And I got to physically, in person, thank them for everything that they've taught me, because they were able to translate those philosophies of Bruce Lee into everyday language. OMG! And I tell you this story, my friends, so that you know what your intuition, when you follow it, can bring to in your life that your head can never, ever anticipate. My friends, this superpower of your intuition can help save your life, and it can help guide you to create a life that is aligned with the core of who you are, and create a life that matters to you. It matters to you. Ask yourself a question. Get out of your head. Tune into your body, your inner wisdom, and feel.